Hello there, my hippity-hoppity Heathcliff huckleberries. On this video, I would like to review the Fencer class as well as share my opinions on the class at the end. I like to compare him to the previous EDF game, EDF 4. And as far as the Fencer class goes, I would say the Fencer class was my least played character until I saw someone zooming around the map and wanted to find out how you do that in EDF 4, as well as learned about two hammers, which was extremely fun. So as far as the Fencer class goes as weapons, his weapons are very similar to EDF 4, and that was one thing that was kind of disappointing to me. However, with the addition of having the ability to increase the number of dashes and the number of boosts, it's really made the class feel so different, and I actually almost think that he feels like the most different class of all the classes, just because of just the addition of the additional dashes and boosts. Because in EDF 4, he had to use a javelin catapult, and he had to stay on the ground the whole time and dash around. So with this new change, he feels very, very different, and I would say very, very good. Now, let's talk briefly about the buffs and nerfs that he received compared to EDF 4. As far as Column 1 goes, it's very much largely the same. I don't really feel too much difference. There might be some damage number tweaks, but honestly, everything feels very similar to me. All the hammers feel good, and they feel the same as before. As far as Column 2, there was a large nerf in the blast hole spears. They went from, I want to say it was, what, 300 some meters in the previous game to down to 124, I believe it is, maxed out. So that's a big change, but everything else in this column feels largely the same. I think there was a slight increase on the range of the spine driver, but not too much difference. Column 3, the shields are very, very similar. However, because of the items that he now has, they actually feel very much of a large buff, because you can now add, what, 800% durability to the shield health. And in addition to that, there's a large nerf to the reflecting of King Spider's web, as well as the small spider's web. So that alone has really affected his shield column to be more of a nerf. Column 4 here, let's go back here. Column 4, the autocannons. Once again, they feel very, very similar, but because of the items, once again, and his mobility, his ability to jump multiple times with these weapons, it's really buffed this column and has made this column very, very useful. I personally never used this column in EDF 4, but now I use it almost all the time. And also with the addition of recoil items, you can reduce all the recoil off of the Hellflame revolver, and that alone also makes a big buff to this column. Let's see, this column here, once again, very, very similar, but with recoil items, you can really do some high damage with the NC cannons now, which is a big buff. You can also, use the recoil items on the 35mm Gallic Heavy, but I mean, I don't feel like it's that big of a game changer on those particular weapons, but the NC cannons definitely feel a large change and buff with that. And also allows for aerial combat. Because of the multiple dashes, you can dash up really high and shoot, heavy mortars down from the sky, which is something you couldn't do before. So once again, it was an indirect buff through the items. And then last of all, the missile items. Once again, the only buff that I can tell was the high altitude missiles. These things fire off and lock on a lot faster than they ever did in EDF 4. So I mean, technically you're getting, what, 3 times the DPS because of that change? Because I went back to EDF 4 recently, and I locked on with these missiles, and it's very, very slow. It's like if you don't have these upgraded, is how it feels. But other than that, also with the addition of items, because you can boost in the air with these missiles, it makes it a lot more of a buff, even though it's an indirect buff through the items. Now let's go on to rating his specific strengths and weaknesses. Let's start with close combat. For close combat, I give him a 9 out of 10. The reason I do this is because with weapons such as the hammers, the finest hammer, the Vulcan hammer, the hammer, the rollers even, because of the blast hole spear, which does a lot of damage up close. And also weapons such as jackhammer shotgun. That combo is just ridiculous up close now. And you have to be close because of the fact the range of the jackhammer 64 meters and the shotgun has damage fall off if you're far away. So it's a very good close range weapon. And also flame revolvers with the recoil item makes him a very, very strong powerhouse up close. The reason I give him a 9 out of 10 instead of a 10 is because of the learning curve that is required for Fencer. It's not as simple to fight up close as such, you know, for example, a wing diver with a rapier or something. It's a lot easier for her to fight up close and than for Fencer. So that's why I knock off a point, but he is very, very strong up close. As far as crowd fighting goes, I give him an 8 out of 10. And that is primarily because of, once again, finest hammers are really great because they hit multiple enemies and they have decent range, plus the damage reduction. The flame revolvers, once again, with the item is great for crowds, and also high altitude missiles. These things are very great on crowds. They have a decent blast radius, 13.6 meters. And they hit, multiple enemies, and they fire and lock on very quickly, and plus you can be mobile with these things, so very good on crowds. So because of those reasons, I give him an 8 out of 10. The reason I give him an 8 rather than a 10 is because of the blast hole spear nerf. The range on that has been cut down drastically, and also if you want to use mortars for crowds, you have to boost in the air and shoot downward, which can be a little bit of a learning curve as well, because you only can shoot technically 2 of them in air before you land to the ground, and then you have to dash away. So it's a little bit more of a learning curve. And like I said, he's no wing diver. Wing diver is probably the best close range fighter in my opinion. So I give him an 8 out of 10. Now on to sniping and long range fighting. Once again, I will give him a 8 out of 10 for this. The reason for this is he has very good damage for long range, such as the 35mm battle cannon, and the NC cannons with the recoil item are ridiculous for range. And also, if you're not talking about sniping, but just range in general, his high altitude missiles, once again, are not just only good for crowds, but they're also good for range. He has what's the range on these? Mine is not maxed out, but 921 meters. I think it's like in the 1200s when it's maxed, something like that. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but yeah, great range on these as well. The reason I give him an 8 out of 10 is because his shots arc. When you shoot them, they don't shoot completely straight. And also, he is primarily stuck in place when he's using these heavy cannons, so he has more of a learning curve, and on top of the fact that it's more difficult to snipe with him. So, but he's very strong if you're very good at that and know when to get away and when you can stand there and fire. But yeah, so I give him an 8 out of 10 for that. Now on to mobility. For mobility, I give him a 9 out of 10. The reason I do this is because of the learning curve. He moves in set distances and set distance intervals, so it's not as simple as just wing diver where she can fly, to this spot and stop right here, whereas he has to dash boost to a spot, and then if he overjumps, he has to dash backwards to stop himself, or it just takes a little bit more of a learning curve. But when you are good with him, he is probably the fastest, or he is definitely the fastest class in the game with the blast twin spear and then any of the jump items. So yeah, very, very strong. Now onto Inferno. Inferno, I would give him a 10 out of 10, honestly. I think he is probably the safest and the most mobile class in the game, and in addition to that, he is very, very strong. So I would say whenever I see a Fencer on an Inferno mission, I feel like there's always an option to beat that mission with the Fencer class. So because of that, I think he is probably the strongest class on Inferno. Air Raider, of course, is a close contention because he has the ability to do high damage, but Fencer is more mobile and usually can find a way in spite of not having that mass carpet bombing option for him. So I feel very, very confident with Fencer on Inferno. Now let's move on to my opinions of the Fencer class. Alright, so as far as my opinions go for Fencer, I would say he is probably my most enjoyable class to play as. His movement change that they made for him was absolutely genius. As far as allowing him to dash boost multiple times. And just, I don't know why, it's such a simple change, but I never would have thought of it, I don't think at least. And it allows you to take a weapon from one of these two columns, and then in addition to that, a weapon from one of these two columns, or this column. I mean, he has so many weapon options, so many good combos. I rarely see too much of the same weapon setups online. I mean, of course, jackhammer shotgun is a ridiculous combo. I see that pretty common. I'm used to see blast hole spear or spine driver, and then the dispersion mortar a lot, but honestly, I've been seeing that less ever since the jackhammer shotgun, but that is a good range setup. I mean, he has the missiles, it's just a ridiculous setup, and it's just so fun with all of his item options and so many of his weapon options. And honestly, I would say Fencer is probably the most balanced set of weapons in the game that I can think of. I mean, the only exception would probably be his missiles. His missiles are a little bit overpowered because of the fact that they lock on so fast now. But other than that, I think that he has the most balanced set of weapons, because I see, like I said, so many weapon options, and I can't really think of too many bad weapons that Fencer has, honestly. Just some that are a little bit better than others in certain situations. As far as the changes that I would like to see in these columns, I think the first column is perfect. I don't think I would change anything in this column. I think it's great. I think it's balanced. I mean, even the hammers that do, what does this do? 11,000. Well, mine's not even close to max, but I think it does 15,000 or something. I don't feel like it's broken, because you get pushed back when you swing these things, so you kind of have to use some skill to get close to fire these weapons off safely. The only thing I would maybe like to see changed is the damage reduction. I would like to lower it a little bit from 90%. I think it's a little too good. And this once again, before I say that, this is based on me wanting Inferno to be a challenge. So the only reason I say these things is because of that reason. As far as the second column goes, I think it's very good. I like the change they did with the Blast Hole Spear, honestly. I think it's perfect the way it is, because I think this weapon, having a 300-meter range, would no longer be a crowd weapon. It would be a weapon you would use in every situation, and there would never be a reason to take any of these other weapons, because if you think about the damage it has, it's very high damage, and if you increase that to range, then why ever take a machine gun, or why ever take a mortar or anything like that? So I think that they did a good job on that. The only thing I would like to see change in the Blast Hole Spear maybe is increase the range of the first swing. I think 78 meters is a little bit too low, and I would like to see that closer to the first range number. I think I would honestly like to see 100 meters and maybe 150, or 100 meters and 125 or whatever. I think something like that. It just seems like the first swing is a little bit too close, but honestly, it's not a huge deal, and I'm not too upset about that. As far as column 3, I think the shields are fine. I don't think there's anything wrong with them. I like the nerf to the spiders. I think that was important, because being able to one-shot or two-shot a silver spider was too strong, so I think it's fine where it's at. The only thing I would like to see change would be in the item section for the shields, and that would be, I'd like to see the shield durability down to like 400% or something. I think 800% is a little bit too much. But even if you wanted to leave it that way, I would be fine. It's the barricade system that's the real problem. I think the damage reduction should be cut down to something. I think the best one should probably be 90% damage reduction instead of 100%, so you're not like completely protected by that shield. I think that's a little bit too strong, but honestly, I don't think the shield is necessarily breaking the game, in my opinion. But that's what I would like to personally see. As far as column 4, I would like to see the Galleon Armor Piercer, which is up here. Where is it? The Galleon Armor Piercer. I would like to see that thing actually pierce enemies, because the damage is a little bit too low. I mean, if they keep it the way it is, then I would like to see the damage increase a little bit. But as it is, this weapon is rarely used because of just its damage and its lack of piercing. So I would do that. As far as the low flame revolvers, if you look at this, if you look at the numbers, 82 does 500-ish times 20, and if you look at the lowest one, it does. That's not. I'm thinking of the other one, the one that's in the 30s. This one does 300 or 400-ish times 20, so the damage is pretty close compared to its level. So I would like to see the range increase of these flamethrowers, these flame revolvers. Probably make them like, you know, the same range as the other ones, just lower their damage so they're not so broken on the lower levels. Because if you kept the damage as it is with the 96 meters, I think it'd be a little too strong on the lower difficulties. But other than that, I would like to see the range increased and then tweak the numbers so it wouldn't be too overpowered. Because that is unfortunate. 30 meters is very short, but it is very strong. This one's 26 meters actually, but if you dash hop into something, it's dead on the difficulty that you can use it on. Also, I would like to see the Javelin Storm return. I'm not sure why they got rid of that. It's kind of unfortunate, but I do miss that weapon. It's pretty fun in certain areas. Let's see, and the Gatlings and the shotguns are now good with the boost, so that's a very good positive, so I'm pretty happy with that. The mortars, I think, are pretty good for the most part. The only thing I would like to see change is the cannon shot. The cannon shot's a very cool weapon. It's just the damage is too low, I think, on it for it to be useful. So it's unfortunate. I mean, it does a decent amount of damage, it seems, but it doesn't feel very strong when I use it on Inferno. So I think damage needs to be increased a little bit here. And then last of all, the missile items. Like I said before, I was playing on EDF 4 recently. Just, you know, I forgot when it was, but I was playing EDF 4. And I was using the high altitude missiles, and they lock on so slow. I want to say it felt 3 or 4 times slower than when these are maxed out. So I think I would like to see the lock on time back down to EDF 4s. Although that's kind of, I would say that reduces the fun. So I guess the way to counter it would be just to keep it the way it is, but increase the reload time to double what it is, because my goodness, these things are probably used so much, and they're just so strong. I think they need to be adjusted for the fact that they increased the lock-on time by 3 or 4 times than what it was before. So that's the change I would make for that. One of the biggest things I would say I was disappointed with Fencer is he didn't really have too many new weapon types, and that's kind of disappointing. I like to see that for the next game, for them to give him some new weapons, just to make it a little bit more interesting. Now on to my biggest gripe with Fencer, and that would be, like I said, I love him. He's very fun, but the biggest problem is the enemies are too slow for him. Because you can easily dash boost around a King Spider now with no threats. Before you couldn't do that with the Javelin Catapult. The Wasp Queens are too slow as well for him. He can easily dodge their needles with no problems. And also Queen Ants are become even more easier than they were before with him. So I think that's a problem. There's 3 ways I can think of that would help fix this problem. I think the first idea that I think I would kind of like is to speed up the enemies, and when you do this, then I would also give Ranger the normal speed of this hybrid protector. So his normal speed without any items would be walking speed 160%, dashing speed 175, and then acceleration. This one, because I think that would allow him to compete with faster enemies, and then give him items that would go even faster. And then you wouldn't have to change Wing Diver as well if you did that. And then I think Air Raider is fine because he's meant to be a class that is more of support and backlines anyway. So that would be my first idea, to do that. But I think that might be difficult because the enemies are pretty fast already. So another change I could see working would be to let's go ahead and take one of his dashing items out, his dash boosts. Okay, my second idea for this would also to be, I don't want to lose the dash jumping. I think that is so fun. I would never want him to go back to the way he was before. But if you notice, when I dash boost, you go a good, what is that, 120 meters or something, very far. And if anything, I would like to see his dash boost go half the distance. So instead of going all the way to there, just stop right about here, and then that way it would slow him down a little bit, but still make him the ability to dash, jump around, and be fun as far as his attacks. Because if anything, there's a lot of times in the game where I wish he wouldn't go so far because of just trying to maneuver. It can be a little difficult to maneuver without having to do other dashes in the air. So that would be my first idea, which I think would be fine, honestly, if you just dash boost half the distance. My second idea, or my third idea, finally rather, would be to have unlimited dashing. So he would never have to worry about a cooldown of dashing, but just give him 3 boosts in the air. So after 3, he would have to dash a few times. So he'd have 1, 2, 3, and then he would be on a cooldown for a couple seconds. and then he'd be able to do it again. I think that would also maybe slow him down a little bit, but I don't know how that would work, honestly. So I would have to test that, I think, more before I would ever want to do that. But that's my only idea, is just not give him as many boosts as he has, because he has what? He has 8 of them now when it went on the DLC, so he can constantly dash boost forever. So those are my only 3 ideas that I can think of personally, because once again, I don't need to do this, but like with Wing Diver, I can pull the whole map and I can just run away, and I have no threat of being caught except by wasps, and even then they have a tough time catching you, and also tadpoles have a tough time catching you. So, or I mean are able to catch you. So that's my only problem with Fencer. I love him, he's very fun, but I don't want the enemies to be so far away that I can do anything I want from far away and I'm no threat. And I find myself in that situation a lot. So yeah, that's pretty much my ideas for Fencer. So once again, I would like to hear your opinions and views on the Fencer class, and just if you feel, you know, if you do happen to feel the same way, where you feel like Fencer is too fast for Inferno and it makes it a little bit too trivial, if you have any ideas, that would be a better idea to help, you know, make it so that he's in threat by enemies still. Like, he seems like he's not in much threat anymore, and it's kind of unfortunate. So yeah, so that's my my review and opinions on the Fencer class. So once again, I appreciate you watching, and remember, EDF doesn't leave men behind. It's for real. And also, if you're interested in ways to support the channel, please consider sharing the channel with someone or watching a few ads, as it does help financially and it's very much appreciated. Thanks a lot.